Namaskaram, everybody. Let's begin. Srinathadigurutrayam Ganapatim Pitatrayam Bhairavam Siddhaugam Vatukatrayam Padayugam Dhutikramam Mandalam Virandhyashta Chatushka Shashtinavakam Viravali Panchakam Shrimanmalani Mantra Sahitam Vande Gurur Mandalam Madharme Madhukaita Bagni Mahishaf Pranapaharodhyame Hela Nirmita Dhumralochanavade He Chandamundhardhini निःशेषीकृतरक्तबीजदनुजे नित्ये निशुम्भापहे शुम्भध्वंसिनि संहरासुदुरितं दुर्गे नमस्तेऽम्बिके. Welcome all of you. So join for this special class. This was like generally on the weekends I do take some special classes, and now I like a series of lectures are there, and I'm taking this class from Madurai. Right next to me, I can see from my window Meenakshi Devi is there. So it is like she herself is with her blessings. Aval arulale aval tal vanangi. In Tamil they say, like, it's with her blessings and with her grace. This class is taking place for us, where we are going to begin with the introduction to Kashmiri, Shaivism, and the other Tantric schools. As a part of the Srividya Foundations, we are constantly dwelling into various perspectives to understand how Srividya as a school of thought has evolved for 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 what we are practicing today. It is covering both the historical and the philosophical point of view, and this is predominantly an academic style of a lecture. And I am basing my base readings are from Nitya Shodashika Varna, and connecting them with whatever has been written from various lectures by two important authors. One primary author is Alexis Sanderson, Alexis Sanderson, and Andrew Paradox. Andrew Paradox. We'll be sharing the notes in our community. You can read along with the bibliography and the books I will mention. You can search for them, and if you're interested further, you can explore the readings. So now let's get into Kashmiri Shaivism as the foundation to understand, the evolution of the various kinds of tantric schools, actually. Because when we start speaking on the Shaivism, the first thing we come to understand or drops to the modern expectation is that a religious tradition should be uniform or centralized or doctrinally consistent, actually. Shaivism has never been a single system, students, if we have to put it across. Even if we have to understand the entire Sanatana Dharma, what we call, as, or what we call Hindu religion, is not a unified system, actually. If you understand all the practices, rituals, even the way the mantras are chanted, in the North Indian and the South Indian traditions, everything is different, actually. It's not, though certain things have, though the philosophical meaning and the understanding might be the same, but the way it is put across is not the same. You understand, you even know the fact that, if I have to simply put across, marriage is a religious function, and it's not all the marriages are same, actually. You understand that, right? Actually, there are different traditions within the marriages, actually, though the concept is the same, the union of two souls coming together, and everything, foundation might be the same, but we approach the way is totally different. So similarly, the Shaivism has never been a single system. It has been understood as a historical field within many paths, actually. That is the way scholars have studied over the years, as an historical field, which has many disciplines and revelations emerged and interacted, and sometimes completed, they or even completed or even competed with one another, and while sharing the devotion to a single deity, that is Shiva, as the supreme principle, actually. So this is the way we can put across Shaivism. And Tantra arises within the Shaiva field not as an external intrusion. It represents a decisive transformation in how liberation, ritual authority, and embodiment are understood, actually. When we have to talk about these three aspects: ritual, liberation, and embodiment. Actually, I will explain this more further to you. Then the role of Tantra comes into existence. Now, to understand this entire concept of evolution of Shaivism, uh, you know, or the school of the tantric system, let us break down the concept into smaller levels and then try to understand it in a better manner. Now, let me first give you a kind of an understanding from the Vedic religion to tantric revelations. Early Indian religions, particularly the Vedic religion, was fundamentally three aspects. They were public, they were hereditary, and merit based. Yes or no? They were public. It's meant for everybody in a sense, though the practices, or it was practiced by one particular community, but it was meant for everybody actually. In the sense, it was meant for all actually, and it was also hereditary. You know that, it comes from generations to generations. It was families, they were actually practicing, they were learning, they were involved in it. And it was also merit based in the sense, it was definitely based on the concept that being born in a particular uh, background or a family, you are actually, you have to learn it actually. You are automatically entitled to learn it actually. So the authority came from Vedas. Ritual competence was inherited, and spiritual progresses unfolded slowly over many births actually. Liberation, when discussed, was a very distant and a very uncertain aspect actually. Liberation was very distant and very uncertain in aspect. Tantric Shaivism basically breaks sharply from this model. It claims a new source of revelation, not dependent on the Vedas, but spoken directly by Shiva in the form of called as two things students. One is Agamas and the other one is Tantra. Okay, Agamas and Tantras given by whom? Directly by Parameshwara. And these texts do not merely supplement Vedic religion, they restructure the religious life in itself, actually. How religiosity or the practices of religion is seen is being completely restructured. Initiation, that is Diksha, replaces birth as a decisive spiritual event. This is the first and the foremost concept within the history of to understand, the tantric the tantric practices, or the entire foundations for tantra. Everything that was from Vedic religion, it was based on what is called as birth. Whether you like or not like, you are being born in a particular you are born in a particular family, you are entitled. That completely gets changed, and by diksha, you become a dvija actually. You become what is called as, you are qualified to learn or practice a certain means of aspects of what is called as a higher choice or a higher taste in life actually. One does not wait for liberation across lifetimes. This is point number two, actually. It's not like liberation is like as it is given in the Bhagavad Gita, one in the thousands will attain, what is called as moksha. It is not the case. Like, that is not the case as far as Shaivism is discussing. It says that liberation is not for, though it is through correct initiation, mantras, and within the ritual logics, liberation becomes possible within a single embodied existence, actually, within a single embodied existence. This embodied term, I'm using it again and again. You have to make a note of this, and then you have to explain to me at the end of the lecture, what do we understand by the term embodied here actually. All some wonderful people who always write good commentaries in our Facebook, for the discussions, like Priya, Rama, Rajeshwari, Ganesh. I'm seeing them actually. I look forward for the answers from you all actually, to understand what is the meaning of embodiment that is being unfolded in this class actually. Of course, others are also welcome. So let's get into that further actually. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that the shift is revolutionary and explains why Tantra spreading so rapidly and widely, actually. This is the reason actually, because it is not restricted to birth actually. It is not restricted to one particular clan. It is not restricted to one particular form of society, or it is restricted to one section of society. Rather, it is meant for everybody actually. So therefore, what happened? It was spreading very widely, and it was meant for everybody actually. So from here, what happens? when the concept came into existence, students, there are like two important schools of thought comes into existence, actually. Two important schools of thought within Shaivism. What are they? One is the Ati Marga, and the other one is the Mantra Marga. There are two large schools of thoughts comes into existence, actually. What is Ati Marga? Let's look into Ati Marga. The Ati Marga is the earlier stages of which was discussing about the aesthetic ways of life, the aesthetic path, actually. Its sole concern is liberation. This school of thought was only concerned on liberation. The Atimarga renounces the society, actually. They renounce the society, the ritual prosperity, or the theatrics that are involved in the rituals, or the temple life, and even the rituals that are meant for purity in the most conventional senses, actually. Like, for example, rituals of conventional senses for purity means after birth we have something called as a shuddhi samskaras for birth. We have samskaras for death. There are 16 samskaras that are there, basically. So they completely renounce all these concepts because they do not want to be a part of this embodiment, actually. They do not want to recognize this embodiment that is given with the identity of this body. So what happens is that the Atimargas, the Atimargis who were following this path, they were leading a life that was like in symbolism to death, actually. Death of what? Death of the physical self, actually. So they were leading their lives in cremation grounds. They were using skulls and ashes, not as a metaphor, but as a lived reality. The world is not to be purified or perfected. Instead, this is the foundation for the Atimargas, because we believe in constantly what is called as purification. The purification is something very essential for all of us. I hope I'm not lost. You're all able to listen to me. Are you able to listen to me? Yes? You can give me some emojis because I have some very poor internet here. Oh, thank you so much. Glad. So to sum up the Atimarga in a very simple sense, they are the people who are actually, they do not want to be bound by the societal ways and means of leading what is called as a structured life, and trying to debate between what is called as the divisions that exist between the purity versus the pollution, actually, because that is the foundation in our life. Yes or no? We want to purify things. Even religion, it brings in what is called a sanctity towards thing, actually. Like, for example, when we do the rituals, the first thing we do is that we do prokshanam on all the dravyams. We energize the water, and we do the mantra prokshanam on all the articles that we use, because we assume that there is kind of impurity which is there in the paraphernalia that we are offering to the deity. So we need to purify that. We have to purify our own body, not just the physical bath that we take. We need to even purify the inner self, actually, starting from what is called as pranayama to what is called as bhuta shuddhi. We have to, in various ways, we need to purify this body so that, to attain or to get into that divine, actually. So the Atimargas, basically, they completely reject this concept, actually. So what they do, they do not believe that this world needs to be purified or perfected. It needs to be transcended. So therefore, the Atimarga does not attempt to reform the society, students. This is the foundation we have to understand. It is deliberately positions itself as an outsider. It deliberately positions itself as an outsider. Who is the classic example of these Atimargas in today's context, actually? Exactly, Swastik. The Agoris, actually. The Agoris are a classic example of lived tradition. Because these traditions are since time immemorial, and in today's concept, we have to say means Agoris are one finest examples of a huge clan or a system of what is called as, they belong to various akhadas, and they have various divisions and schools of thought, and they are still a lived tradition, and they are still practicing. And this broadly can be in a way conceptualized within the school of what is called as the Atimarga Tattva. Now, moving forward, the Mantra Marga actually. The Mantra Marga develops as a later school of thought radically with a different approach. It does not reject the world, it ritualizes and reorganizes it. This is the foundational difference between the Atimargas and the Mantra Margas. While liberation remains a primary goal, it is no longer the only one. This is also something important for us. Okay. It is based on protection. This path is based on protection, power, prosperity, healing, sovereignty, and the divine favors to come into our life for our happiness for this world, actually. And we have what is called as legitimate aims, actually. We wanted to lead our lives with legitimate aims. And when I talk about that legitimate aims, this will be broadly classified into 4 further categories, which are very much Vedic in essence: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Legitimate aims, actually. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, actually. You tell me who are the classic examples to be a part of the Mantra Marga? All the 49 of us who are listening to this, including the one who is talking and including the one who is listening, actually. So we are all the examples of this Mantra Marga school of thought. So therefore, what happens immediately, this school of thought brings in the householders, the kings, women, non-aesthetics, beyond the ashrama system, everybody was allowed to practice the Shaiva traditions or the Shaiva religion, actually. Clear to all of you. So this is the foundational difference when we talk about the Tantra coming into 2 major schools of thought. One is the Atimarga and the other one is Mantra Marga. Okay, all the schools are basically based on this. Do I make sense to all of you? Are you all here listening to me, trying to take some notes? Do I make sense? Or it is too much, too confusing, too theoretical, too philosophical? Thank you so much for those emojis. It's quite reassuring that you are able to understand what I'm trying to speak. Okay, let's now go to the next school of thought, the Kapalikas. The Kapalikas are the inheritance in terms of the logic of transgression, the Kapalika school of thought. Between these 2 paths, like the Atimargas and the Mantra Margas, there is historically, this school of thought is relevant, though it is not existing in today's time in as it is, but this was one of the major reasons for so many other schools of thought to come into existence. One is the primary is the Kapalikas. The Kapalikas were radical ascetics who embodied the most extreme expressions of Shaiva renunciation. We understood that the Atimarga was basically a renounced path. These Kapalikas were extreme in that renunciation, actually. They went to the extreme sensibilities of renunciation. They lived in cremation ground, carried skulls, used ashes, consumed what is called to be the forbidden substances, and performed rites that deliberately inverted the social norms, actually, which were not at all considered, which can't even be thought by a common man. They were involving into all those rites, actually. Students, one thing we need to understand here as aspiring sadhakas or wanted to become upasakas, these practices were not random. These practices were definitely not random or immoral. They had their own logics in their own, actually. They had their own logics. They sought identification with the primary deity known as Bhairava. The primary deity they identified was Bhairava, the terrifying form of Shiva, who stands beyond what is called as purity and impurity. The entire debates that we have, the entire concept in which our lives are, surrounded, purity versus pollution. So to go beyond this was the tattva of Bhairava, actually. So, by deliberately crossing boundaries, the Kapalikas aim to destroy all residual social conditioning. Actually, they didn't want it to be a part of the social conditioning, because these social conditioning are actually leading to what is called as further karmic accumulations, actually. And if the entire path was supposed to nullify karmas, they felt the best ways to transgress this entire social structure so that they are not bound by what is called as the karmic laws of this material world in which they are a part with the material body. Therefore, the tantric traditions do not intervene, intervene and actually what is called as they raise their eyebrows towards these transgressive rituals, because they actually mean these transgressive rituals, or what is called as the entire use or the implementation of the forbidden substances, like what we call the panchamakaras in their purest form. They actually came from this kapalika culture, actually, if we have to put it across, the entire tradition. That is what Alexis Sanderson like tries to claim, that it's inherited from the Kapalika culture, and it is through the Kapalika culture, it is something very crucial for us, because it is the individual versus the marginal. Actually, it is the individual versus the marginal. That is, what was once wild, it becomes textualized, initiated, graded, and ritually contained, actually. That is, the entire mantra marga is basically what textualized, initiated, graded, and ritually contained. The Ati Marga, or the extreme in the Ati Marga, that is the Kapalika tradition, wanted to go completely far beyond this school of thought, actually, because they didn't want it to bound themselves with the bodily identification, actually. Clear to all of you? I can see some of you are taking very seriously notes. Ruchi Chavla, Guru Prasad, and others. Thank you so much for participating in a very swift manner in the class, and I hope you're enjoying it. Sri Ram Chellappa is also there listening to the class. Let's go further. The mantra marga, because mantra marga is something which we all should know, because we are actually aspiring for that, actually, because I'm sure nobody's here wanted to become a agori or a sannyasi, because then maybe we are getting to know that school, but here we are since practicing what is called as the mantra marga school of thought. Let me talk a little more on that. It's a structured ritual system, actually. As the mantra marga matures, with the practices and how various teachers, were coming into existence in the different parts of our Bharata Desha, and it was developing as a very sophisticated internal hierarchy. At this, mostly the important thing that we have to understand is the mantra marga gave existence to one of the major schools in South India, which is called as the Shaiva Siddhanta. The Shaiva Siddhanta school of thought, actually, which is still existing, which is still practiced, which is still one of the most sophisticated approaches towards attaining moksha, liberation, which is not Vedic in school in thought, actually. This system is ritualistic, temple centered, and dualistic in philosophy. Shiva remains the transcendent, and the soul remains bound until liberated. And through the divine grace, you know, and meditated by various rituals, you attain what is called as purification, and that purification will lead to what is called as liberation, actually. So therefore, the Shaiva Siddhanta represents the respectable phase of Tantric Shaivism. It is compatible with kingship, public worship, and within the orthodox social structures, actually. Yet, it is one of the highest and the most intense form of the tantric practices, actually. Now comes the important element for all of us, how Shakti is introduced within this patriarchal or the male centered idea of Shaivism, actually, because this is something very important. Like, because we definitely, because we are focusing upon the Shakta school of thought, and originally the entire theoretical understanding is coming from Shiva, actually. And how Shakti Pradhana Shiva Tattvam, actually, Shakti Pradhana Shiva Tattvam, how it comes into existence is like I'm slowly trying to put up a perspective for all of you. So as we move deeper into the systems, we observe that there is a profound theological shift that happens where Shakti moves to the center over time, actually. That is, Shiva is no longer emphasized primarily as the static, detached Lord, particularly when it is coming to Mantra Marga. Because why? Mantra Marga is, Mantra Marga is all about embracing life, actually. The Mantra Marga is all about embracing life. And when we have to embrace life, the primary element is Prakriti, actually. Yes or no? Correct? Do you understand or not? Without Prakriti, can we enjoy what is this world is all about? No, we cannot enjoy. So the understanding is, the world is important. Liberation is also important for me, no doubt about it. Liberation will come, but before liberation will come, I need to lead my life here. I need to lead my life according to the social standards. I need to lead my life according to, all kinds of, I need all kinds of prosperity. At the same time, I wanted to practice what is called as the path towards liberation. So what happens? Shakti moves to the center as the school was expanding, as a tantra, as a school, Atimarga and Mantra Marga, and as it was spreading in the different parts with different ways and means of practices, what we see, Shakti becomes center, and Shakti becomes an inseparable part in this entire philosophical dimension, actually, because ultimately we are all seeking happiness. Yes or no? We all seeking happiness. In other words, what is this? The central tenet of Srividya, students. What is that one word which is centered to Srividya? Use the chat box and answer me. In the first class, I told you that one central thing in Srividya. Remember, you are having exams. Give the correct answer. What is the one central thing that we are looking forward in Srividya? Excellent, Prasad. The answer came in already. Swatantrata. Swatantra is the central element of Srividya, students. We wanted freedom, basically. In spite of being bound, how to attain that freedom? A very complex understanding through the practice or the practical wisdom to all the other things, whatever you have mentioned, everything has sensibility there, actually. Along with what is called as swatantrata, how all these elements are coming together, actually. So you have to remember, this is something very essential. How swatantrata becomes the foundation in understanding, in understanding what I am actually, and how am I dealing myself in relation to this world, actually. So, what is happening? Shakti is the power through which we understand, that is the theory recognizes that Shakti is the power through which all the manifestation occurs. Shakti is the power through which all the manifestation occurs. Shakti is no longer a secondary or a symbolic thought. It is the primary understanding, and with Shakti alone, there are the following things are very important. Number one, Shakti, you can make a note, Shakti is the engine of creation. Shakti is the engine of creation. Shakti is the engine of creation, number one. Shakti is there, therefore, maintenance of this creation is there. Maintenance. The maintenance is there. It is not creation, maintaining that creation. And since there is creation, sorry, there's some internet issues. I'm here. I'm right here. You can see like some of them are literally searching like children searching for mother. Where did the mother vanish actually? Thank you so much. Okay. So creation, maintenance, dissolution. 3 points. Yes. If creation, maintenance, and dissolution is there, what is that one thing that is binding us? Bondage. That is Maya, Yoga Maya, or Mahamaya. Correct? Otherwise, we all will be in Atimarga only, right? Yes or no? We all are. We are all living a life of this realization. There is no, this world will be no more a material world. Actually, if there is no what is called as that attachment as a core concept, if that is not there, then what will happen? We are all sadhus and sannyasis. This world is only full of sadhus and sannyasis. Yes or no? Correct or not? So what Devi does, she introduces bondage also. She introduces bondage. Very, very clever she is actually. Of course, she's our mother, right? How she will be like, she introduces what is called as bondage. Through that bondage, she introduces what is called as suffering actually. She gives bondage. Through bondage, she doesn't give suffering. If I have to correct it, we get attached and we land up suffering. And she expects us, with the suffering, we learn lessons and we come back to what is called as liberation, so that we can value the liberation. You understand what I'm trying to say? So this bondage is the primary concept. Students are able to follow what I'm trying to say. That is the reason in Lalita Sahasranamam, what it is, Shrishti Sthiti Samhara. Already deities are there doing it, Trimurtis are doing. But she is doing what is called as Tirodhana Karishwari. Tirodhana Karishwari Namaha. Lalita Sahasranamam. Tirodhanam. She is the one, this Maya, we easily say this is Moh Maya, and we continue to live in that, happily keep drinking payasam and eat vada every day and sit and enjoy this world actually, but that is, you can't keep, that is not the way you understand this actually. Puriyarda? Are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? Suresh Raja, Mahesh, what after Saturday, one day leave was there. Guruji has kept the class and going on taking class like this. Correct, na? It's okay. Listen to the scriptures. So what? So this bondage is what Devi wants us to deal with a very intelligent manner. And that intelligence is Srividya. That intelligence is Srividya. And that intelligence will lead to what is called as liberation. Are you able to follow? Manaslayo? Okay. We will keep this aside. Let's not, because the class is all about with the understanding of Shaivism. So let's focus there actually. So without Shakti, Shiva is inert. That is, there is no action coming from there actually. So Shakti becomes Pradhanam. Without Shakti, without Shiva, Shakti also becomes in a way directionless. So that Shiva and Shakti Tattva is centered, is coming together, and Shakti is in the center. Are you able to follow now how things are evolved from Ati Marga, Mantra Marga? Then we introduce what is called as the Kapalikas, going extremely away. But as a society, we realize, or the teachers of the traditions could realize that this is not the way that the world can run. There is an inherent human nature. There is a inert system that we have been sent with. So that needs to be shaped, that needs to be defined. So how to go about it? Then it is the mantra marga is structured further into a ritualistic system, and within the mantra marga, everything that was centered on Shiva, now Shiva is put into the periphery in a way, and slowly Shakti is introduced in the center of the school of thought actually. Clear? Clear? Now, what happens? Shakti Pradhana Tattva becomes the theological insight that completely transforms the ritual systems. The worship, all the worships that were existing or existing now, is not merely focusing on transcendence, but it is focusing on what is called as the embodiment of powers. The embodiments of powers. Okay. So now, since Shakti has been as in ascendance from the theoretical point of view, we further dwell into what is called as the important school of thought, which is Vidyapeetam, with the Vidyapita and the Yogini traditions. And the Yogini traditions. At the more intense level of practice, we encounter the Vidyapita traditions. Vidyapitam. These are not public temple system students. They are initiatory, nocturnal, and often terrifying to outsiders, actually. In other words, it is not meant for everybody in a way to practice or understand. Here, the central figures are the yoginis. The yoginis are the center in this school of thought. Kamakshi. So yoginis are the center in the school of thought, and they are not benevolent mother goddesses. They are not benevolent mother goddesses. They are fierce, autonomous powers. They are fierce, autonomous powers. Yoginis represent cosmic forces. They represent what is called as the cosmic forces, and that operate beyond moral categorization. They are beyond the moral categorization. To engage with them is to place oneself directly with the machinery of this entire cosmos. So it is like the cosmic power directly, actually. Clear, yoginis? So the rituals in this domain are designed to break the ordinary identities, actually, and reconstitute the practitioner as a vessel of Shakti, or to invoke that Shakti, the Shakti Tattva. And to invoke that Shakti Tattva, what happens? Sexual rites, blood symbolism, creation ground imagery, and mandalas, that is yantras, are all involved as not indulgences, but they are technologies for dislocating the ego, to dislocate the ego. and realigning the body with the cosmic power. And realigning the body with cosmic power. Moving further, the Trika, Trika, the Trika, that is from ritual to recognition. Within the intense ritual culture arises the Trika system, particularly in the Kashmiri region. In the Kashmir region, the Trika does not abandon Tantra. Instead, it interprets Tantric ritual philosophically. The Trika system gives a foundational philosophical understanding to the entire practices. In Trika, the universe understood as a self-expression of consciousness itself. Self-expression of consciousness itself. Rituals mirrors the cosmic emanation. Rituals, they are actually nothing but to understand what is this cosmos all about, which is beyond the human understanding, or what are the various paradigms that are involved in these cosmos. And liberation is not through escape, but through recognition. That is, recognizing oneself with the Shiva Tattva. Recognizing oneself with the Shiva Tattva. The practitioner has to foundationally ascend inward, not just outward rituals alone or practices, but within deep inside, you need to take these rituals and practices and retracing the stages of manifestation, that is back to your original source. And what is our original source actually? What is our original source? If you can use the chat box to answer me. I think I lost a couple of people because of internet issues. Swastik Mishra and others are like, I can see their screens are frozen. Are you all there? I'm sorry with this bad internet. Okay, Swastik. Shiva and Shakti, the answer. Shiva and Shakti. So, what is happening? The practitioner, that is the sadhaka, takes these rituals, mantra, and yoga to remain as essential practices, but they are all directly coming as expressions of the consciousness and not just mere external mechanisms. And not just external mechanisms. And the Yamala Tantras, Yamala, the Yamala Tantras emphasizes the polarity. Because when we are talking about Shiva and Shakti, we have to understand the principle of union. And this is coming primarily from the Yamala Tantras, which talks about the masculine and the feminine energies, actually recognizing the masculine and the feminine energies. That is consciousness and energy. If we have to put it across, masculine versus feminine, that is consciousness and energy. The central insight is that power arises through union and not suppression. Suppression is not the solution. But whereas understanding that power that arises through Shiva and Shakti's union is what is very important, and channelizing the energies, and that energy leading to consciousness. Therefore, if I have to put it across, like in Kolachara or the Vamachara traditions, the sexual rites that are practiced is tightly regulated, or it is initiatory in practices, because these are very controversial topics when we want to understand tantra. But let me tell you, it is not just like that it is practiced. They are highly regulated, and they are initiatory in basis. Actually, it's never casual. It is understood as a cosmic act, actually, reenacting the union through which the universe itself is unfolded, actually. So these are all highly sophisticated ways of means. That's the reason they were kept as secret traditions, meant to be practiced by a certain group of people who are called as the Veeras, actually, the heroics, actually, not for debate, or not to be, not for speculations. They had their own path, actually. So this is not indulgence, because as practitioners, we have to have this kind of a mindset, students, because the mindset is very important for us, actually. Though we are practicing a very different kind of an achara, but it doesn't mean that we need to look down upon the other acharas which are existing or practiced since time immemorial, actually. They are not just indulgence, it is a metaphysics that is enacted through this body, actually. The body is seen as an instrument to attain that divine means, actually, or connecting with with what is called as the cosmic forces, or the energies, actually. So this is what we have to understand, how the Yamala Tantras, further give us the understanding or the division between the masculine versus the feminine energies, and how these energies are put into a way or a perspective to understand what is called as consciousness energy coming together. And this is this the principle of this Yamala Tantras can be deeply contested, deeply debated, deeply embraced, even into today's times, like how sexuality, sexual energies, or even to understand the alternative sexualities that are there in the society. There are other kinds of sexualities which are existing, which is all what is called as the gender fluid concept, or the LGBTQ community. Everything has a kind of an understanding that is there, actually. So as a practitioner, we should have a broad mindset, because everybody is that source of that creation. Everybody is that source of that consciousness, actually. We have no right to judge anybody, or we have no right to pass, kind of any kind of of what is called as a remark just like that, actually. If we believe everything is truly an act of Shakti, then everything is an act of Shakti only. That kind of a selective Shakti, Shiva Shakti principles will not work, actually. Are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? It is her act, her creation, actually. So when we talk about this masculine and feminine energies, they have deep down understanding coming in various ways as how society is functioning. Because the entire mantra marga is what? The entire mantra marga is to deal with society, basically. And society is not a static entity. It is a dynamic entity. Yes or no? Correct, na? The way society was there for our parents, for our grandparents, it is not the time for us now. And that is not the society for our children, actually. Yes or no? Society is changing. Society is evolving. So when the society is evolving, traditions are also evolving, basically. Where the traditions are evolving, further, there is a kind of what is called as the progression in various ways. So the mantra marga gives a space there, actually. And that is the beauty of Srividya. That is the beauty of Sri Yantra, basically. It can be worshipped by a brahmachari, it can be worshipped by a sannyasi, it can be worshipped by a grihastha. Anybody can approach the Sri Yantra, basically. There is no restriction there, actually. So, therefore, there is no indulgence. It is a metaphysics enacted through the body. And when all these were evolving students, when the society was evolving through these dimensions, Alexis Sanderson also gives the political opinion as how Tantra was deeply embodied within the state. One of the most important historical developments we have to understand is the Tantra's adoption by kingships, actually, kings and the kingships, because Tantric Shaivism offers something to the Vedic religion, but it is never fully provided. That is a theology of sovereignty. Kings adopted Tantra because it promises protection, victory, legitimacy, and cosmic alignment. And through Tantra, the kingdom becomes not the king, or the kingdom is not merely a ruling entity, but a ritual axis connecting the heaven and the earth, actually. Now you understand why there are so many kings and kingdoms have actually built so many temples, actually. In South India and in the Northeast India, the Kamakya is also completely built on the kings and the kingships, actually. Even in the South India, even where I'm sitting, like Madura, the Madurapuri, the city of Devi Meenakshi, is completely developed by the Pandyan kingdom, actually. And later by the Cholas and the Cheras were also involved historically. Because why? Because Tantra gives that scope, it gives the legitimacy, it gives the recognition for the state, for the rulers, actually. Therefore, as Tantra enters the political system, that is the courts, and when I'm talking about the court, it is not the modern judiciary court. I'm talking about the court of a king, actually. It is an extreme element which is softened, symbolized, or internalized. It was never erased, but it was practiced as a legitimate aspect by kings and kingdom. Okay, and so therefore what happened throughout the medieval history, we understand that Tantra was everywhere. Tantra was in every geographical location in the entire world, including the Bharata Desha. And all the temples, festivals, the iconography, the daily worship, everything was based on certain tantric principles. Even today, whatever we practice, whatever we understand, most of the things are based on the tantric principles or the tantric understanding. Some of them we don't know the meaning, actually, but we do understand the fact that they have certain meaning. For example, they say that sandhya kalathula velakethirnom veetla. Yes or no? During the Sandhya time, you have to light lamps. This is not a Vedic understanding. This is a Tantric understanding, actually. You understand what I'm trying to say? In the house, behind the house, keep one Tulasi Madam, keep a Tulasi. This is a Tantric understanding, actually. And now, since there is a lot of scientific advancement and understanding, we can say why a Tulasi pot is kept in a house. Yes or no? Why we have to light lamps during the Sandhya Kalam, that is the dusk and the dawn time. Actually, now we have developed logics, but there were no logics before. Our ancestors were following, our parents have taught us, we were practicing, actually. Now, in today's time, today's generation needs answers, actually. They want everything logical, They don't want anything called as, they don't want any superstitious things, actually. So all these practices were tantric in nature, and they were deeply having meaning, actually. One thing they say that, the more you give the meaning, the value is lost, actually. You just keep it secret and ask people to do it, actually. Do as I say. Are you able to follow what I'm trying to say? The children also, if you see, like children, when they start understanding the world, they are so inquisitive. They keep asking, what is this? What is that? What? When you start answering them, the essence is lost, actually. Or when they understand, the essence is slowly coming down. The inquisitiveness is coming down, basically. You understand? Because there is so much, it is going on building up, the building up of the knowledge is actually bringing their enthusiasm further down. It's not that the enthusiasm is growing up, actually. I do not know how many of you have realized this with young children. They have this inquisitiveness to understand everything, They have this question, what is this? What is that? Why it is like that? Why it is like that, actually? Certain things you have to say that when you understand, you will understand. You should not land up answering them actually. You say that, though you know it, but you should leave it to them actually. It's better let them understand when the time will come actually. Not that everything you should answer. So what I'm trying to conclude is here is that the transgressive roots, they remain within the tantric practices in the medieval time, but they are layered beyond certain symbolisms actually, because not every practice can be followed. Every transgressive practices can be followed. They were nullified. This is the central thing that you have to make a note. How the transgressive practices were getting nullified so that it can be adopted within the system of society and family and individual actually, and how it can be practiced. So therefore, Tantra survives because it gets adopted without forgetting its core logic, without forgetting the core logic. So if I have to sum up this entire lecture that I've been giving, Shaiva Tantra is not about excess or rebellion. It is about speed and completeness. It is about speed and completeness. It seeks to compress what earlier traditions stretched across lifetimes into a single intense path. The Shaiva traditions teaches us three important things if I have to sum up, students. Nothing is outside Shiva consciousness, Shiva Tattva, number one. Number two, nothing is impure from nature. Nothing is impure from nature. And number three, liberation is not departure from the world. Liberation is not a departure from the world, but recognition of its true nature. Recognition of its true nature. Therefore, Tantra does not reject the world. Tantra does not reject the world. Harish, are you understanding? Harish PB. Yes, Tantra does not reject the world. It is, we are submitting ourselves to the world. We are submitting ourselves to the world, and we are transforming. We are therefore transforming the world and ourselves. We are transforming the world and ourselves so that we understand that there is liberation, which is a path, not a distant path, but it is very much available here, and I can recognize it and I can attain it. It is very much here. It is not that I have to quit my body, I have to die to get that liberation, but liberation is very much here. I recognize that and I live that concept of liberation. So with this, I end the first session of Introduction to Kashmiri Shaivism. I hope it was useful to all of you. There's so many concepts I introduced. I just gave what is called as the bundi. Now you have to make the laddus with these bundis actually. You have to read a little further on all these concepts and let us evolve. In the next session, we have the next session at 6 p.m. where I'll be talking further about the traditions. Thank you so much. Namaskaram. Let's end the class with Mangalam. Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Trayambhake Gauri Narayani Namostute. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sarvam Shri Chandi Mahalakshmi Arpanamastu. Tathastu.